Hello there, I'm James Norton. I'm a former history student and today I'm here to give you a brief overview of the History Route B content. The History B module offers a more medieval timeline to things, whilst Route A tends to offer a more early modern and Cold War era. Both routes count as the exact same though, so it really is down to personal preference. Hopefully this video allows you to be more informed on the content on Route B to see if it is the option for you. The course is broken down into 4 different units. Units 1 and 2 are the ones that you will be focusing on in the first year, alternating which one you do weekly, whilst Unit 3 will be your main focus for your second year. Now, without further ado, let's get into Unit 1, Anglo-Saxons and Normans. Unit 1 goes from the reign of Ethelred the Unready of Wessex all the way to William the Conqueror's 4th son, Henry, ascending the throne. This part of the course also covers the political makeup of England at this time under a foreign ruler and how this allowed for powerful earls to rise up locally, like Earl Godwin and his son Harold, but he'll come up later. This part of the course also explores the succession crisis that happened on Canute's death and how his sons fought over the throne of England, and then going into that, the revival of Anglo-Saxon royalty through Edward the Confessor. After Edward the Confessor's death, we cover the penultimate year of Anglo-Saxon history in 1066 with the rise and fall of Harold Godwinson after 2 unfortunate invasions that occurred simultaneously between the Viking Harold Hardrada and William the Bastard. This here marks the beginning of Norman rule. We then cover the cultural shock and drastic change of Normans now ruling over England rather than Saxons themselves, and during this time period we see the complete eradication of the entire Saxon nobility and basically explore what the repercussions of that are. A large recurring theme throughout this unit is definitely the influences that external cultures have had on the Anglo-Saxon way of life, and how with one conquest it all completely changed, and over a millennia we are no longer speaking Anglo-Saxon but in fact English as we know it today. And this unit allows for a very good way of reflecting on how we've changed over time. Unit 2 begins with the reign of Tsar Nicholas II, Tsar of all of Russia. The empire is decades behind the rest of Europe, with 80% of people still being peasants farming the land. The Tsar is the sole ruling body of power in Russia, with no others to challenge his authority. The empire is only being held together by mass censorship, the use of secret police to keep everyone in line, and the brutal oppression of peasants. In 1904, a major turning point occurred in Russia's history with the Russo-Japanese War, which ended in a crushing defeat for the Russians. This crippling defeat caused mass uprisings all across Russia. Although the widespread revolt was unsuccessful in overthrowing the Tsar, it shook the establishment to the very core, with them realising now that they could not rely on the loyalty of peasants to keep them in line. To try and regain control, the Tsar decided that he must enact reform now, and so decided to set up a body of government, and although still his puppets in essence, things proved to be somewhat successful in regaining control. However, he still ended up resorting to the use of secret police and mass executions for more serious rebellions. Although not totally healed, Russia appeared to be on the mend. However, in 1914, World War I broke out. Although public approval of the war in Russia was initially high, by 1917 the entire country had been crippled by famines and military setbacks and defeats, which caused the capital, St. Petersburg, to rise up in rebellion once more, which eventually spread to the military, who forced Tsar Nicholas to abdicate in 1917. The Tsar reluctantly handed power over to the provisional government, who promised to enact out electoral votes as soon as possible. However, they faced many of the issues that Tsar Nicholas had faced himself during this time. The provisional government was unstable after inheriting many of the issues that Tsar Nicholas faced, such as the famine, poverty, and the war that was still going on. Unfortunately for them, they couldn't solve these issues in time, which allowed for Lenin and the Bolshevik Party to eventually assume power in October, merely a few months after the provisional government had been put in place. The Bolsheviks promised an end to the war, totalitarianism and starvation that the Russian people had faced for so long, but instead what followed was decades of brutal oppression and mass famine yet again. Although the Bolsheviks were successful, in 1924 Lenin died, and over the next few years a power vacuum would consume the party, which would eventually lead to the rise of Joseph Stalin. Unit 2 then concludes after Stalin has risen to power and has begun enacting out his 5-year plans, which wreak havoc, devastation and death across all of the Soviet Union, causing death to millions more. In Unit 3 we cover the Age of the Vikings. This period lasts 270 years, so it's by far the longest one that we cover. It goes from the sacking of Lindisfarne in 793 all the way to Harald Hardrada's attempts to claim the English throne in 1066. In Unit 3 you'll end up covering basically everything that we know about the Vikings, from their fashion and the way they dressed to the daring raiders and explorers like Ragnar Lothbrok and Eric the Red. Rather than the other units where you learn in chronological order, instead in this unit you'll be given areas of study which you will look at specific areas of Viking culture and traditions and see how they change over time, for example with the introduction to Christianity into their mix, rather than being heathens. This allows you to better grasp specific areas of Viking study rather than just the entire 270-year period, which, believe me, would be a lot to grasp. I hope this video was insightful for you on seeing on whether Route B is a good option for you. I highly recommend that you check out the Route A history option as well, as it is just as good as this one. And remember folks, happy raiding!